So if you haven't seen my last videos, it's a small series of this is my Columbus Day special. Please let me know in the comments what you guys think. I know I'm gonna get hella dislikes, and you know, that's fine. You know, let me know. Agree, disagree. Just please cite your sources. Try not to let, I know it's hard, but try not to let emotions get in the way of historical facts and what happened. You know, I'm giving my opinion of what I think, so I don't make the statement Christopher Columbus discovered the New World with sarcasm. Most people do, and I explain myself, but I gave it, you know, context and whatnot. You agree, disagree, indifferent, whatever. Just try and back up whatever comments that you make with something more than he was just a horrible guy and I'm wrong for saying anything to the contrary. Please back it up. Back it up. With you know, logic. So the last thing I want to talk about is why does Columbus get blamed for things that the Spaniards did, specifically for things that the conquistadors did? That's always perplexed me too. Just to put things in context, I'm gonna say this. And also keep things in context. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, "We cannot be morally correct and factually incorrect." So I'm gonna say some names and dates. Hernan Cortés, 1519, he conquers the Aztec Empire. 1519. Francisco Pizarro, 1532, took over the Incan Empire of Peru. Juan Ponce de Leon, the first government of Puerto Rico, he makes it to Florida, the first European in what would eventually become the USA, because at this point Columbus only sailed in the Caribbean, made it to Venezuela, made it to Guatemala, a little bit of the Central America. Juan Ponce de Leon in the year 1513 makes it to Florida, the first European to touch what eventually, he's the first one to touch North America. Battle of Wounded Knee, very famous, 1890. The Sand Creek Massacre, 1864. The Trail of Tears, the famous Trail of Tears, happened between 1830 and 1850. That's a 20-year span between 1830 and 1850. The conquistadors, yes, did horrible things. Deplorable. The certain battles, Battle of Wounded Knee, horrible. The Trail of Tears, horrible. The earliest one was 1519 that I happen to look up, and I know there's more. With those dates being said, and the question being, why does Columbus get blamed for what the conquistadors did? The Aztec Empire was conquered in 1519. Columbus died in 1506. So why Columbus gets blamed? So from 1492 to 1506, Columbus had 4 voyages, which total between the actual time that he stood here, you know, in the New World, or in the Caribbean. He stood in the Caribbean, discovering different areas and exploring. He spent about 6 years in total in the New World. That's it. So let's say he came, you know, the first voyage, and then he left for 10 months. I'm not including those 10 months. I'm not saying from 1492 to 1506. No. He only spent the equivalent of about 6 years, 7 years in the New World. I'm not counting the time that he was in Spain or out on sea, because he died in Spain. That's it. So why he gets blamed for things, why there are indigenous peoples and you know, various tribes from Canada and the U.S., you know, the Cherokee, the Apache, and We had the Lenape in Jersey, in New York, the Lakota, all these very, very various tribes. Why there's videos depicting those peoples saying, F Christopher Columbus. If you didn't see my first video, check it out. When he never made it to what would be eventually the United States of America. He never touched the U.S. at all. The closest he got to any main continent was when he made it to Venezuela for a short while. And he went back. His home base was Hispaniola. And why he gets blamed for the atrocities of Battle of Wounded Knee, the Sand Creek Massacre, the Trail of Tears, Hernan Cortez taking over the Aztec Empire, Francisco Pizarro taking over the Incan Empire, Juan Ponce de Leon being the first European to touch North America and make it, to Florida, the tip of Florida. When the guy he's been dead, but he still gets blamed, and people are attributing Christopher Columbus as like the reason why all the natives are gone within North America. He never made it. He never touched North America at all. The dude died before he was like 60. He finally made it to the New World in his 40s. So that's always perplexed me. Another a wonderful, wonderful topic that was brought up was it's good for me to keep in mind intergenerational trauma, and for that reason, the indigenous peoples that were in North America attribute Christopher Columbus as being just the end-all be-all worst of humanity. I know there's like study on it. I did do some research on it. Not a lot, but yeah, there's like doctors in the field. For me, it's, show me the receipts. Show me that there is I guess what I'll explain what intergenerational trauma is. Intergenerational trauma is the study of what has gone on with the Taínos, what's going on with the slaves. It's in our DNA today. The experiences, the trauma that they went through is within us today, and that accounts for subconscious emotions subconscious negative emotions that we may go through. So me having Taíno in me, which I do, that may account for why maybe sometimes I go through bouts of depression, why maybe sometimes I may lash out, why I may be angry, because of intergenerational trauma that's within my DNA that my ancestors have gone through. That's what intergenerational trauma is. If anyone else wants to explain it better, please do so. It seems to be, a growing field. There's intergenerational trauma, there's intergenerational slave trauma. For me, I think it's an interesting theory. I completely disagree. I think it's a bunch of BS, honestly. I think it takes away responsibility from the individual. What my ancestors went through, I will never understand. What my Taíno ancestors went through, I won't understand. What my African ancestors went through, I will never understand. What my Spanish and Portuguese ancestors went through, I will never understand. I do not think that their traumas affect me, like on an emotional DNA level. If that's the case, please show me the receipts when it comes to intergenerational trauma. Show me the intergenerational trauma or the trauma gene or strand in RNA, DNA. For me, it sounds like a psychological cop-out. It sounds like a person needing to do mental gymnastics for their own frailties. I think it's important for people to take responsibility for who they are, what they are. The fact is that my traumas are my own. My mother's are her own. And the traumas of my Taíno ancestors from 500 years ago, I'm not feeling today. I can read in books and I can understand. I can sympathize And I can feel sad, like, yo, man, that was really horrible what the Spaniards did to the Taino. It's horrible just as a whole. These horrible, deplorable things that happened to the indigenous peoples and the conquering, the colonialism. You know, it's horrible, horrible stuff. But me on a DNA level, on a genetic level, experiencing those as if we have genetic memory, essentially, that's Assassin's Creed level reaching, okay? We have to take responsibility and ownership of our own minds and actions. So I completely disagree with that whole intergenerational trauma idea. At the end of the day, we're talking about events that took place 500 years ago. We're talking about a guy that died in 1506. We're talking about events that happened so long ago. You know, my thing is, let's educate ourselves, not regurgitate what we've heard and read in little titles that we see on the internet, and just assume or regurgitate what other people are saying. Learn both sides and then form your opinion. If you still think that Columbus was like this horrible human being, great. If you see something in a different light, you know, my sources are a book by a guy named Rafael. He has a book called Christopher Columbus the Hero, Defending Columbus from Modern Day Revisionism. A wonderful, wonderful book. And he cites primary sources, and it's basically a compilation of sources that cite all the different. It's a compilation of all the different arguments that are used against Columbus, from the cutting of the hands to slavery, to the sex trafficking ring, to the gold, you know, the cutting of the ears, and all different things it has mapped out of disputing all of those. And then you have books that are, no, this is what happened, but I personally like the book by Rafael because it really puts everything in its proper context for the time period, and for, you know, if it's not just going to show just like a little excerpt. It's going to show this is what the entire paragraph says, and within that proper context, this is what this means. So I disagree with intergenerational trauma. I have a mind of my own. What happened to my Taino ancestors, I can sympathize with, but I'm my own man. If that were the case, if intergenerational trauma was the case, then I would be suffering from my mother's trauma, because everybody has trauma. So I'd be suffering from my mother's trauma and my father's trauma, and they would be suffering from their parents' trauma, and it just gets passed on, a snowball effect. With that logic, we'd all be a bunch of traumatic messes. We'd all be just this big old, in our mind, we'd be just this conglomerate of thousands of years of just trauma. Not just talking about, you know, the trauma of the Spaniards killing the Taino. No, like, you know, you know, let's say the trauma of losing a child, the trauma of losing a parent. I can sympathize with my parent knowing, oh, yo, their parents died. It was a horrible, traumatic experience. I totally get it. But I won't understand until it happens to me. I can sympathize, but I won't understand until it happens to me. The trauma that my mom and dad felt from losing their parents eventually, it did not go on to me. You know, and I think intergenerational trauma, I think it insinuates that before you're born, like as a baby, it's just in your DNA. I'm more of a, what forms you is nurture, and the whole theory of intergenerational trauma is making it a nurture, a nature theory, that it's just something you're born with. No, I think everybody's born with a clean slate. Yes, some people are born crazy. I mean, we all see like 5-year-olds want to, you know, end up serial killers. But your average person, your average baby is not born with all this trauma of what happened to it. Not, you know, when I was born, you know, I'm Puerto Rican Dominican. I wasn't born with all this trauma inside of my DNA, from my Taino ancestors. No, that happened. They were their own people. And it was horrible what happened. And my slave ancestors, it was horrible what happened. But I'm not experiencing the trauma of what happened to them. If I'm feeling depressed or sad or whatever, it's because my current living circumstances, my current brain chemistry is where it is. And so it's something I had to deal with and work through. It ain't got nothing to do with my parents and their emotional trauma. No, we're two separate people. So why am I going to reach 500 back years ago to explain why I am sad sometimes? No, man, I'm my own guy. So I think it's just taking personal accountability for oneself, one's actions, one's mindset, instead of blaming it on my genetic material, my genetic code, my RNA, and my DNA. If that's the case, please show me the proof. Show me the RNA, the DNA, the strands, the genetics. I'm no doctor. I'm no biologist. If there is if someone out there, if you're watching this, if there is a trauma gene that is within all of us, then please show me the money. Show me the proof. Show me the receipts. Okay? So I know this video is already dumb long, but I don't think it's right that Columbus gets blamed for things that occurred after his death. I think that's ridiculous. Let's keep things in perspective, keep things in the proper context. Columbus had nothing to do with the decimation of any natives that had to do with North America or South America. He only made it, to the Bahamas. He made it to Venezuela. He made it a little bit to Central America. He never, ever, ever touched North America. He touched a little bit of Central America. He touched one country of South America. He never made it to Brazil or nothing. He just made it to the closest country. I think Haiti and Venezuela are not too far apart. He made it to Venezuela and he went back up. His whole area was just discovering a few islands in the Caribbean. That was his spot. It wasn't until after he died that more people, okay, now we have a little settlement. We settled Puerto Rico and Cuba and Hispaniola. Now we can move out. Now we can move out. And then France wanted in and Portugal wanted in. Once the other countries found out, like, yo, man, you hear what Spain got? They got land and we need in on that real estate, you know. It doesn't justify any of the atrocities that occurred, but that's humanity, and the world will continue to evolve, and lands will be taken, lands will be stolen, lands will be fought for. Will Puerto Rico end up getting, having a revolution and being independent one day? Okay, well, it belonged first to the Tainos, and then to the Spanish, and then to the USA, and now it's a colony. It's still a colony. And would it own itself? Who knows? Only history knows, but that's history. That's just history taking course. People own lands. That's humanity. Killing, destroying each other, taking land, stealing lands, making treaties, making peace and breaking it. That's humanity, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed these videos. I want to make more because I'm just feeling in the mood to make these videos. And let me know what you guys think. Agree, disagree. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Please leave links for your sources where you're citing this, not just your emotions. Yes, your emotions are valid. I'm not gonna discredit that. But try and leave sources, not just, you're wrong, Julio, for saying any of this. Let me know, okay? Because I think any argument that's just a hurl of insults is not an argument at all. So, hope you guys enjoyed. And remember, back in 1492, Christopher Columbus gave us all a day off school.